Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening. My name is Michelle LaFaso. I am the Senior Director of Student Affairs at Hofstra Law School. We've done this program for many years in conjunction with the University of Baltimore, so we're happy to be back and sharing this experience with both Hofstra Law students and UBalt students. I have Professor Miriam Lyman with me today. She's going to be talking about her course being taught down in Curacao, and then I believe Dean Weich, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, will be talking about his course shortly as well. But I just wanted to give you a few information, a little bit of information about the program. It is going to begin December 19th and run through January 8th. You'll be taking the two courses, legislative process and international sales law, that are both there. The costs for the program are up there on the screen. It is a 4-credit program. And tuition is going to be at $4,420, which is a reduced rate for us at Hofstra. I'm sure you at Baltimore as well. Yes. And the program fee includes not only your lodging while you're there. We'll be staying at the Marriott, or you'll be staying at the Marriott. I unfortunately am not able to join you on the trip, but and we'll show you some lovely pictures of the Marriott to hopefully see what you're going to be waiting for you down in Curacao. But Professor Lyman can also talk a little bit about the hotel as she stayed there last time she taught at the program. So the fee is based on double room occupancy. There are lunches included. You will be taking classes at the University of Curacao. We will have a bus that will take you to and from there, and lunch is provided every day with someone from the University of Curacao cooking for the group. There will be 3 dinners, I believe, that are going to be taken care of: a welcome dinner, a goodbye dinner, and a holiday dinner. And the rest of the dinners are going to be on your own. So there are places to explore in Curacao, and then also the hotel has restaurants as well. So that is the nuts and bolts of it. Obviously, we're very aware of COVID. You will have to take a COVID test before departing down to Curacao. There are some tests that they require if you're staying more than 3 days, that the hotel has a testing facility on site, and it will be complimentary for you to take that 3rd day test. And then the US does require you to have a test right now, unless things change in the next couple of weeks, to come back to the US, of which you can take also through the Marriott. There will be some mask mandates at certain areas. I'm not sure if the University of Curacao is mandating masks right now, but there will be certain parts of the hotel that may mandate it in certain parts of Curacao. We're taking every measure to keep you as safe as possible, but we just have to face the facts that COVID is still, is still something to think about. And if you have any concerns, please let us know. So with that all being said, and I will take questions towards the end, I'm going to turn it over to Professor Lyman, who's going to be...
Michelle, may I suggest that Professor Sellers provide something of an overview too? He developed the program, and maybe that's sort of a good overview before we turn to the 2 classes.
Absolutely, that's fine. Professor Sellers, go ahead.
Could you take down the share screen just for a second?
I can. I will put the sample schedule back up after.
Okay, great. The reason I do that is so that you can make me have the full screen if you want, and I can see you. So we didn't really coordinate our plan that much before we got here, and I think I don't think at this point in the program you want me to talk primarily about the fun aspects of the program. So I think at the moment now what we're talking about is just the structure of the program, if I understand correctly. And so you stay, as you heard, at the Marriott. The Marriott is an incredibly luxurious, beautiful hotel where students loll happily outside all day. So it's a very, very nice place to be, with a big pool and a big ocean. One of the very nice things about Curacao from the standpoint of someone who's operating when we don't want to be locked in small rooms with other people is that all year, including when you're there, it's 80 degrees all the time. So the way things work is it's all open windows and open doors and you're outside, and that really diminishes the feeling of being locked up somewhere, which I think is very important for enjoying yourself, because part of what I want you to do is enjoy yourself. And by enjoy yourself, I mean meet people who come from Curacao, and talk to them. Because one of the things that, I think that's almost the most important part, because this is a comparative experience. And anybody who is a student of anything, but particularly law, and particularly an American law student, should, if they possibly can, get out of the USA and talk to people who have not been brought up entirely in our system. Because our system is weird, actually, and full of things that don't make sense. And you don't know it if you're just sitting there in a US law school and listening to people like me talk. It's only by getting a sense of other cultures and other legal systems that you can understand your own legal system and perhaps question some elements of it, or at least question them in an intelligent way. So that's why I personally am so big on comparative law. It's why I think students should have comparative experiences, partly because they're just fun. I mean, I do comparative law work all the time, and that's because it's fun. But it's also, I think, sort of a secret weapon when it comes to analyzing the American system. Americans are super parochial, particularly in the law, because we're very proud of our legal system. And whenever you get proud of something, it starts to deteriorate. So we benefit from having this comparative experience. That's really the main thing I would say about the benefit of this program. If you can study for a year overseas, do it. Anytime you can go overseas, do it. And anytime you can go overseas in a legal capacity. And one of the big benefits of this program is you will visit, I hope that we always have done, I think it's still happening, the local courts. You'll visit the parliament. You may visit the Coast Guard. And those are really important experiences. Curacao is unusual in that it was a Dutch colony. And it's still somewhat under the control of Netherlands, although Netherlands pretends it isn't. But so it's got Dutch law, it's got local law. They interact heavily with the Spanish Caribbean, and they have to deal with the USA. There's actually a US Air Force base there. So you've got these systems. People on Curacao, everyone on Curacao speaks at least 4 languages. Their own language, Papiamentu, Spanish, Dutch, and English. So next time, you're thinking it was hard to learn any languages, think about the people there. But fortunately, so many of them do speak English that you can really make friends. And that's what I do when I'm there. It's also got a lot of little restaurants, a lot of little beaches, a lot of places where you meet people. One of the things I love is New Year's. They're huge on New Year's Eve. While you're there, they will have New Year's Eve. There's a big bridge in town where every single person on the island goes to this one place and hangs out. You can just walk around and see all kinds of people. And it's a small enough island so you don't feel overwhelmed like you might if you went to a party like that in Baltimore. So, I guess, and then I guess I should mention a little bit about the so-called University of Curacao. It used to be the University of the Netherlands Antilles. It's a small campus focused primarily on the people who live on the island. Most of the professors are Dutch, but they're trying to have more and more local professors. And typically it will be somebody who comes over for 2 or 3 years from the Netherlands and then goes back. It's lovely. It's a small little place, but you get a sense of what it is like to be a person on the island of Curacao. And you can see how European, I hope that one of the things that will happen while you're there is you get a little bit of exposure to European law as it applies to the Caribbean. Because of their connection with the Netherlands, they get a lot of benefits from the European Union, and European law affects them. But because they're in the United States sphere of influence, particularly with criminal law and drug interdiction, they are cooperating very closely with the United States. So their law is a combination of Roman Dutch law, European law, US law, and then recently, in 2010, they separated from the rest of the Dutch Caribbean and became their own little commonwealth. So that too is fascinating because you can see a place that is trying to work out how to be independent in the face of corruption, and all kinds of things that happen when you try to be independent. What I've done now is just try and give you a vision of what it's like to be there. So I'm I'm not going into I'll come back at the end to talk about some of the fun stuff, but that's just the structure of the program and the nature of life as a student. And anything like this you can do, I urge you to do. I do it whenever I can because it's great. Okay, I'll give it back to the teachers who are actually going to be there. Yeah.
So now, Professor Lyman?
So the course that I'm going to teach in December is a course that I actually created for the last time I taught in Curacao, which was 10 years ago. And I loved it so much that I've added it to my regular package, and I teach it every other year at Hofstra. I am a contracts and biz orgs teacher at heart. And so the course that I'm teaching is an international sales course. It is a comparative transactional study of the UCC, which should sound hauntingly familiar to all of you, and something called the CISG, which is the UN Convention on Contracts for the International Sale of Goods. So it gives me a couple of opportunities here. In a year and a half or so, many of you will sit for an exam that will require you to have a lot of familiarity with the UCC. Even in Hofstra's 5-credit contracts class, I can't cover as much UCC as I would like. So this gives me a chance to get a little bit fancy. So we do cover formation, statute of frauds, warranty, risk of loss, gap fillers, all the things we talked about in contracts, but we compare them to see how they work out in the CISG. So it really is an interesting deep dive because the class meets every day. It's a deep dive back into things that you learned in 1L. Now that you have some, miles on your skis, you're not 1L students anymore. You have a different lens to see this stuff. So it's a wonderful class. I'm an incredibly difficult, hard, challenging teacher. My exams are long and challenging, but they are fair, and my courses have waiting lists. So I'm doing something right because people want to learn and I want to teach them. Unlike at Hofstra, I have my office hours either by the pool or by the beach. I'll let you know on any given day. And in the evening, we all drink our way through all of the frozen drinks alphabetically, but I don't drink anything blue because I just think that's weird. Although blue Curacao is like their thing. So that cuts the list in half, which saves me some time. This year, I'm bringing my family, and my daughter, who is about to turn 18, has learned that 18 is the drinking age in Curacao. Turns out it's not the drinking age in my family, though. So we're going to have to come up with some approaches. So I'm going to need all you guys to keep a really close eye on her. I'm bringing one other son, a sophomore at GW, and my husband, who is an avid cyclist, who will bring 1 or 2 bikes with him. So it's a nice course. The hotel is gorgeous. There's a huge breakfast that I think Michelle's going to tell you about that's included. And so they give us lunch at the school, but my family I tell them they should eat lunch from the breakfast because there are fridges in the room so they can make sandwiches. It's an unbelievable, it's like there's what is better than a hotel breakfast buffet? Very little, right, in life. So there's that. The hotel's beautiful. There's a beautiful pool. The beach is, 2 feet away from that. Everybody there, tourism is a huge part of their industry. So and particularly after COVID, I imagine they will be so happy to see us. But it's a very unique country. It's accessible. You can see there's lots of history there. There's a fort downtown to look at. And then as Professor Sellers was saying, on New Year's Eve, the Hilton, which is next door, has a huge fireworks thing that you can just walk down on the beach and see. So there's plenty to do and plenty to see. You do need to save some time because you're going to have 2 credit classes. So you're going to need to do 2 hours of reading for my class a day. It's like a regular class. The fact that we're in paradise does not excuse you from your responsibilities of, digging in and contributing to the conversation. But it's such a different vibe because you're going to see me in the afternoon and you can be, hey, I had a question. Like it's more like a continuing conversation than we really get the chance to do in our daily lives. And you'll only have 2 classes on your plate instead of your 4 and your journal and your externship. So it really does give you a chance for a nice deep dive. And I will give you guys the book in advance so you can get it on Amazon. And I always bring, a PDF of the first chapter for people that are still getting their act together. And so if it fits into your budget and if it fits into your time schedule, it's a wonderful way to see a beautiful part of the world, get 4 credits and start to get ready for the bar exam. We would be remiss in the world if we didn't give you exposure to international law. It's just, I don't care what you're going to do. It's a global world these days. And so this, even for folks who are planning on just doing US transactional work, which I'm not even sure is a thing anymore, you need to know something about other law. So this is your chance to do that. And I hope I get to see you there.
All right, shall I take it away with my class? So students, hello, you know me, I'm your dean, Ron Weich. And because I'm the dean at UB, I don't teach every semester. I have other responsibilities. But I have taught several times a class called Legislation because it aligns with my experience. I worked in the United States Senate for several different senators, Ted Kennedy and Harry Reid. And then I worked at the Justice Department representing the Justice Department in Congress as the Assistant Attorney General for Legislative Affairs. So through all of that, I became something of an expert in legislative process and have taught that class at UB on several occasions. And for Curacao, I've adapted my curriculum, my syllabus rather, to make it a comparative experience, since we will be not just in paradise, but in another country's paradise. So the course is called Comparative Legislative Process, and we'll review the American legislative process, and it'll be much more than you learned in high school civics. We'll approach it as would-be, soon-to-be lawyers, thinking about how statutes are drafted and how they go through the process to become statutes, and issues of statutory interpretation and statutory drafting. But then we'll look at it through the lens of comparative law, and specifically we'll compare the American legislative system with parliamentary systems. Curacao, as Professor Lyman and Professor Sellers have described, come from a different tradition, and specifically the European parliamentary tradition. So I certainly hope we'll be visiting the Parliament in Curacao, and in any event, we'll be studying that kind of lawmaking system, which is quite different from the American system. I've been tickled to point out to people, one thing that I've written about, that I care a lot about, is the American practice of the filibuster, extended debate in the United States Senate. And I like pointing out that filibuster is a Dutch word. So we'll find the roots of the filibuster in Curacao, and we'll talk about its pros and cons and see whether that kind of practice has any parallel in a European parliamentary system. But I've never been to Curacao myself, so I look forward to Professor Lyman showing me around, and I certainly will be guided by Professor Sellers' experiences, and he's told me about it. And I'm really looking forward to both the academic experience there and the kind of tourist experience. It seems like a wonderful time that we will have over those weeks, and we'll certainly get to know each other very well. And I've seen, as people have come back from these study abroad experiences, there's a real bond that develops among the students who go through this experience together and with the professor. So in this case, me and Professor Lyman. I'm very happy to answer questions, but I think we'll turn it back to Michelle for more, nuts and bolts, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you. And I must say, to have your dean teaching at this course, and on behalf of Hofstra, Professor Lyman is very beloved and has won Teacher of the Year and is one of our most popular professors. So you would all be very lucky to be able to be in this class. So I'm very jealous. What I put up on the screen now is just a sample schedule, just so you'll see what your day will kind of look like. There are no classes on the weekends because of where the holidays fall this year. So there are classes, it seems, every morning until the afternoon. And as Professor Lyman had mentioned, there will be the afternoon you will have to be preparing for class for the next day. But there is some free time. There, as Professor Lyman mentioned, a wonderful buffet breakfast that is included in your stay. We do a trip to the grocery store, so you can go get some snacks and things if you want to keep in your room. And there is a mini fridge, as I've come to understand, that there's one in your room, so you can keep some things too if you need to. And there'll be a couple of grocery store trips. There are some field trips that we're going to be planning. We're still working out with Curacao what's open and accessible, so we are working on that part of it. But so you get a sense of where your days will be and how you'll be spending them. So I wanted to give you guys a sample schedule there. Let me just see. And there's some pictures. So there's the lovely pool that everyone was talking about. So you guys can kind of see what the hotel looks like. This is a picture of some former students at the University of Curacao where you'll be taking your classes. There was a boat trip that they had gone on, and some pictures of the island. So you have a little bit of information and get to see a little bit of what paradise awaits you. So if there are any questions on the end for Hofstra, this is the phone number for the International Programs Office. My email is on there as well. The deadline for the application, and you can find the application, I believe that you're making it available at Baltimore, but through your website, but also through our website, it's available. Or you can email me if you have any questions about the program. But we'll open it up for questions now in case you have any questions for the faculty or Professor Sellers about Curacao in general, and some other fun things to do if Professor Sellers and Professor Lyman want to talk about. I've heard about an ostrich farm, so I don't know.
Ostrich farm is amazing. And you can, if you want to, ride the ostriches. I did not want to, but two of my kids did. And the most hilarious thing is my daughter, the one who is 18 and thinks this is going to be 3 weeks of alcoholism, rode the ostrich, but she's an equestrian. She rides horses. And so she was posting on the ostrich, which just was hilarious to all of us. So it's a little bit, the ostrich farm is not to be missed, but it's unique. That's what I'll say.
Questions from the students?
Wow, we did a good job.
I just had a quick question. Hi, I'm Megan, regarding logistics. If like a family member wanted to come visit for a couple of days, because I know I saw in the application you could apply for a single room and things like that.
Yes, you can apply for a single room. The price will change because everything is based on double occupancy, based on rooming with a fellow student. But we do have some students, I believe, from Hofstra that are their families coming down at least for the holiday part. So they are requesting a single room, and then we'll talk about the difference in pricing for that if you're requesting that. Obviously, as we always say, it is a course, so you will have to go to class and you will have your work to do. But if your family is going to be down with you, you can bring them. They wouldn't be able to go on any of the field trips or anything like that.
But if they're there for a different time, it might be easier for you they could Airbnb it. In other words, students could keep your hotel room regularly and then have your family in an Airbnb, go party with them, come back.
Okay. And then I actually just had one other question. If you've experienced in the past or just anything we should keep in mind about like additional hidden fees, like I know we're going to be like, I imagine, will there be Wi-Fi for us easily accessible? Is that something we're going to have to pay for as well, like through the Marriott, or how does that all work?
There is Wi-Fi through the Marriott. I am not sure about University of Curacao.
There's free Wi-Fi at the University of Curacao.
Okay, great.
Hi, I had a couple of questions as well. So first question, how many students do you guys normally accept into the program?
There is no limit. I believe one year we had like 50 students, if history from going back and people telling me. So there is no limit. There is a minimum that we do need to run the program, but we're on our way to that, and hopefully you guys will add to that.
Awesome. Okay. And then my next question. So the due date has been extended to October 20th?
October 20th, yes.
Okay. And then as far as the $500 check that goes with the application, that has like 100% has to be mailed to you guys, or is there like a online payment?
There's a credit card option on the form. If you don't feel comfortable with credit card, then yes, you would have to mail the check. We're not going to deposit anything until we know absolutely for sure 100% it's going. And if for some reason, COVID ramps up again in November, and God hope not, then we have to, cancel the program for some reason, you would get that back.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle, can I ask if, in light of the uncertainty that you raised with COVID, are we recommending travel insurance? Have we suggested that to participants?
We're telling students right now, don't book your flights until absolutely, don't book them right now. The application deadline is the 20th, and then we'll let you know about acceptance. If you can get travel insurance on your flight, that's always recommended. We will have some insurance, but that's mostly medical insurance through our company that we use, that we require everyone to have. But I mean, I would say at most on the flight, because everything else is through us with the hotel and everything.
There's a trade what the situation is going to be like this year because of things being a little bit different. But in the past, getting onto the flights, booking in advance was actually highly desirable because they get filled up. So if you can get, and I think sometimes, I don't know I actually haven't spoken with the airlines, but if you can get a refundable fare early, that would be the best move, because students in the past who left it too late have had to take rather circuitous routes to get there. There are a number of ways to get there, but you can go through Aruba, you can go through Miami, but everyone wants to be there for Christmas. So I wouldn't advise you to leave it too late, but I would advise you to get a refundable fare if you can. And I think
my tickets are. I got my tickets in the summer because I am a believer that this program is going to run, but they're fully refundable because I'm not an idiot. So I'm kind of. So that's JetBlue for me from New York, and it's a direct flight. So it was more money for it to be refundable, but in light of the world that we live in, I think it's the prudent course.
The airlines are desperate right now, and I think they will get less desperate as COVID diminishes. So I would look into it now.
Yeah.
I see that Amanda has a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if we could talk about the financial aid process with this.
So for UB students, I inquired, knowing that we'd get a question like that. You do apply for financial aid through the UB, even though the program is administered by Hofstra. The UB students would apply through the UB financial aid office, but shouldn't be a problem. I mean, that this program has run for many years, and the office is quite accustomed to extending financial aid. So whatever form of financial aid you're accustomed to, you should be able to get for this program.
They were used to doing it, and there was a person whose job it was to make it easy for you. But given the shakeups we've had, if you go in and you have problems, let us know, and we will go make sure that you don't have problems. So my expectation is there will be no problem, but the problems will disappear if you mention them to us. So remember that too.
Other questions? Nobody else? Everybody's sold? Everybody's ready to get on a JetBlue to Curacao? All right.
Good.
One sign up. Anything else? Tim, Professor Sellers, you said you wanted to speak a little bit about the fun aspects some more?
Oh, I was going to, but they all look so happy. I mean, I brought pictures of things that people do in Curacao, like jump off cliffs into the ocean.
Yeah, I don't do that.
And could I just ask Professor Sellers if he's ever ridden an ostrich?
The ostrich riding is no. Short answer, no. I did not ride ostriches. I didn't even visit the farm. I just ordered ostriches for dinner.
Oh no!
And they serve ostrich burgers at the ostrich farm, which is very disquieting to me.
Called riding.
Too close.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, there are just lots of things to do. These are souvenirs from a little restaurant I recommend called Janchi's. He carves these and gives them out as a gift after you've had your iguana for dinner. There's, I mean, and on a more serious note, the Curacao flourished 400 years ago. It's a relic of the early Caribbean. It was a center of the slave trade. They have an excellent museum about that history. I think it was a center for Jewish emigration to the United States, not the United States, all Americas. In other words, the first large Jewish population in North America was Curacao. The oldest synagogue in this entire hemisphere is in Curacao. So it was a very diverse population, and I think that the historical part of it is something to consider. It's a little bit different from places like Aruba, for example, that you may have heard of, in that it's not just a tourist spot, it's a real place. And for me, that made it enormously more interesting than the places that have been taken over by US tourists. It's not been taken over by US tourists. Its big industry until about 30 years ago was oil refining, not tourism. There are a lot of relics of that there, and there are a lot of forts there. So it's one of the most interesting places in the Caribbean because it's not given over primarily to tourism. Although they would love to if they could, but that's the tourists are mostly Dutch or from Venezuela. And again, that's nice if you're an American because they're not sick of you. In other places they're sick of you, but they're not. I will just say, make a commitment on behalf of Professor Weich for his class that he is going to recruit at least one Curacao legislator to come in and talk to you.
Sure. Yeah, I think that'll be fascinating.
Maybe two, because that'll be really, really, really interesting to hear what they have to say. And filibuster, by the way, there were a lot of Dutch filibusters, but it's a French word and it means pirate. And
I thought it was Dutch. I've been telling an untruth.
The French word and it means pirate, and there were a lot of pirates in that part of the world. So that's something to think about too. There still are, actually, because of the deterioration of Venezuela. There's a lot of lawlessness. Curacao is right off the coast of Venezuela. So a lot of what the United States is trying to do to control bad things in that neighborhood is operating through Curacao. And a couple of our graduates have gone into Coast Guard or naval careers, and their experience in Curacao, to some extent, I think was an inspiration in doing that.
Although on that point, lest we scare our prospective students, am I correct that the experience that Professor Sellers and Professor Lyman have had there suggests that it's safe? I mean,
it's very safe, but it's not 100% safe. In other words, you don't want to go into certain neighborhoods very late at night carrying all your money. It's a real place, and it is a real place. But I think it's dramatically safer, for example, probably than wherever you live. So
you do need to be sensible. My husband, as I said, is a cyclist, and when we go any place, he does his due diligence to figure out whether it's safe to ride there. And he rides in Curacao, but in certain parts of it. So just as in any city, when you go out to dinner, you're going to talk about what neighborhood it's in. So you're not going to, just because we're, in a tropical paradise, we're not going to check our common sense at the door. But I wouldn't bring my kids there if I didn't think it was safe. And as these places go, I mean, I live in Queens, I live in New York City, so it's safer than my neighborhood.
We live in Baltimore. So
yeah. Hotel to town. So the hotel is about 3 miles from town. So you can walk in along this bike path, jog in along the bike path, or bike in along the bike path. And at least when I was there before, the hotel had bikes that most people didn't know about, but if you asked, you could get them. I don't know if that's still the case, but I found it very nice to bike into town. Didn't have to worry about parking.
And they have cabs, and there are lots of restaurants within walking distance, nice restaurants. But the one story I remember from Curacao is it's just a different mindset. I'm a New Yorker, and we were getting directions, and the woman at the hotel said, you go on this road and you drive for 5 minutes, and then you get off at the roundabout. And I'm thinking, but how fast? Like, really, 5 minutes? And so it's a little more of an island kind of laid back approach to things. I was a little more like, I'm going to need a street name, I think, so it is a definite, it's a different experience. It's a different world.
All right. Other questions from students?
I have office hours at noon every Wednesday. Any student who wants to meet with me personally is invited to my office hours in my office. I also will meet you any other time you turn up at my office. You'll have a good time. Ron Weich is a wild guy, and it's good to have the opportunity to spend time in his company. Miriam has the appearance of being someone who's going to have a good time too. So I commend the program to all of you. I wish I were going.
I put my email address in the chat in case anybody wants the sample schedule or anything, or has questions about the housing and the room situation. If you do want to request a single room, so you can reach out to me as well.
All right, I'll see you in Curacao.
See you soon.
Look forward to seeing some of you or all of you.
Nice to meet
All right.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye.
Take
Bye.
care.